What's going on, guys? We're back with the Diablo Immortal podcast, actually called the Immortal Podcast. I do that every single show. It's episode 7, and today I'm here with my good friend Captain Nemo from the Scrappy Academy YouTube channel and Dread Scythe, a Diablo 3 veteran, someone that can give us some of that insight to the old school family of Diablo. We're going to be taking all of your questions today inside of this episode. Plus, we have some points that we want to discuss as well. We got about an hour to talk here today, so make sure you get any of your questions in the chat down below, either on YouTube or on Twitch. And if you're here watching as a video, you can always let us know in the comments section. Moving on to Nemo. What's going on, man? Good morning. How you doing?
Morning, Echo fam, and everybody. How's it going? I'm super excited. We're back with the Immortal Podcast. We got Dread on the hook to answer all kinds of questions for us. I cannot wait to hear from him. He's an old school Diablo 3 fan. He's been playing for a long time, and I can't wait to chat with him. So let's get going. How's it going, Dread? What's going on?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Always good to be on other podcasts and be on new podcasts, as you guys have been. Other than that, besides tons of work this past week, I've been better. So this is a much better experience to be looking forward to over the weekend.
Oh, good, man. I'm glad to hear it. We try and have a pretty laid back, chill environment here, but at the same time, answer questions that the community is waiting on. And I mean, Diablo Immortal, compared to other games that are out there that there's podcasts on, is a hot one because there is a lot of questions, and a lot of people ask the same questions. When's the game releasing? Will it work on my phone? And all those types of questions, which we'll probably dabble in again today, as we do every episode. But I want to start off by asking you, Dread, because we've already heard from Nemo on this topic a lot, but you are primarily a Diablo 3 player, as you said, for the past 9 years, because you should probably actually take a second and tell everyone what you do and why you're here, why you're so important to be here. But after you tell everyone all that great stuff, let them know how you honestly felt about Diablo Immortal. So a little quick review of the game, comparing it to Diablo 3. Did you like it? Did you not? That kind of stuff. So tell us who you are first.
All right. Well, name's Dread Scythe. To make a very long history short, basically, I guess my overall viewpoint with Diablo 3, especially when it comes to community management, all that kind of outreach stuff, has always really been, trying to facilitate either communities or places or, finding people and trying to help them advance themselves, really. So for like my first website way back in the day, I was able to get a sponsored ventrilo server back before in the dark days, before Discord was free and you had to pay for your voice chat and everything. Build like entire guild sponsorship. We had like almost 24 guilds, almost 300 people using a server. So that was really a cool thing to have right before Diablo 3 itself launched. And then as Reaper of Souls came out, I was more, even in the early days, I was involved with Blizzard, when Bashiok was our temporary CM, if you know that name. Most people probably remember him from the WoW community management side. But just keeping up with Blizzard, working in the betas, working in feedback, and then eventually coming almost to now when the Necromancer came out, working on some, I guess you could say, private events that they had for content creators as well as media, as far as testing things out, asking questions about the Necromancer, the videos. From beginning to end, my thing has always been making sure that the community has a good shepherd and making sure that really people feel like they matter. That's become my charge in this community. So no, you won't see me streaming, you won't see me making a lot of content videos like Nemo and Echo here do, but primarily my thing is just making sure people taken care of in the community. That's what my default role has become over the last 9 years. So with all that out of the way, my honest viewpoint of Diablo Immortal, and as far as it being, how good is it compared to Diablo 3 and then, as a Diablo game as a whole, I could sum it up in 2 ways. There were 2 hidden bars. They were, two hidden bars that Blizzard had to hit with Immortal. Was Immortal going to be a good game? And when I say good game, I don't mean mobile game, a good game, period. And was it going to be a good Diablo game? Those are two very different questions with two very different results. And in my eye, Diablo Immortal is a good game, period. And it is a good Diablo game, period. Mobile does not need to be thrown in there as a tagline. It does not need to be thrown in there as an asterisk. Diablo Immortal is a good game, period, and it is a good Diablo experience.
Nemo, I think we got him, man. I think we're actually pulling all of these PC guys into the mobile gaming life, man. And Dredd said it beautifully there, because, and this is something I've been saying for a while that no one really can believe me on because they're just taking my word, but Diablo Immortal is not just a mobile game. It's a game that's being built as a PC or a console experience. It's just being done on the mobile platform. So Dredd, you had my back, man. You said exactly what I've been saying, so thank you. But I'll let you get back to any last words that you want to say on that topic, on the experience, maybe, you know, anything else that you want to add, because I did kind of cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, it's really hard to quantify, because I think what Nemo and yourself are experiencing with, you know, Echo, you released your video about, you know, the haters and everything. A lot of us who've been living and breathing, and I wouldn't even say so much defending as much as like just nowadays we just shrug people off who just bash Diablo 3 for the sake of bashing it, even though the last time they played it was probably in vanilla before all the changes of Reaper of Souls, let alone all the content patches since then. I mean, Diablo 3 now is nothing like it was at the beginning of Reaper of Souls, let alone beginning of Diablo 3. So we've been used to the people who are like, oh, it sucked back then, it sucks now, or it's not D2, so why should I bother? And now with Immortal, it's that same argument as far as like, oh, it's a mobile game, we don't have to worry about it, we're just going to bash it. But it's like, it's a full-fledged experience. I mean, getting from 1 to 45, let alone 60, took me 3 days. It's like in Diablo 3, it's a 2-hour experience to get to max level. And then when I think about how much of the game, and I'll keep it short just so we don't go into other territories, it's like Diablo Immortal, you know, if I could just put like that third point, you know, besides the first two, it's like Immortal is Diablo 3 at its maximum potential. Because even though there's a lot of things in Immortal that you could say maybe were pulled from or took heavy influence from Diablo 3, any kinks in those systems, any like misimplementations of them were actually corrected, iterated on a couple more times, and just made to work better with other systems. So it's inherently a better game, I would say, than Diablo 3. Now you'll have the top tier Diablo 3 people go like, oh, but like this, that, third. But at the end of the day, Diablo 3 is get to 60, get your set, get your supporting legendaries, grind. There's nothing really more to it. Diablo Immortal at least is variety, and we don't even have everything yet. So that's why I'm looking forward to Immortal, so I can finally do something new for a while and go on from there.
Yeah, that was a great point that you made there as well. Very good points you actually dropped, but we only saw a portion of the game, and I don't know if it's half of what the game is going to deliver, if it's 3/4, if it's a third. We don't really know because we're not told, but I mean, some of the stuff that we really didn't see yet was a big example of the PvP. We saw that one event that would pop up every hour or so, but we didn't see the full PvP experience. And now you mentioned that that I brought up that haters video. I also brought up a video on my thoughts on multiplayer and what I'd love to see in Diablo Immortal, and really curious to see what direction they go in. And honestly, I'm curious to see what they have built already, because we didn't see much. And this is going to bring us to a few topics today, actually going to be out in my video tomorrow, are when do we actually think the game is going to come out? And when it does, what do we think the PvP experience is going to look like? So we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But Nemo has been quiet over there for a little bit, so I'm going to hand the mic over to him. Either Nemo to add on to anything that you heard Dredd say, or to pick up a question that we may have had come through the chat.
Sure, that sounds good. Well, I do have to echo a lot of stuff that Dred said. I really love the fact that there's so much more stuff in Immortal, right? Like he mentioned with Diablo 3, you go through, you get your set, you do the grinding, then you're done. Right now, I'm almost done with my Mondanugu, with my Witch Doctor. Still playing, but I'm almost there. And but with this, we got so much more stuff, and we haven't really seen that. What from what we heard, we haven't seen a lot of the end game. There's like a lot more stuff that's coming, so it's pretty exciting. Now, I have some questions for Dread because some people in the chat are wondering what kind of Diablo player Dread is. So, two questions for you. One, what is your favorite Diablo 3 character? And two, what's your favorite Diablo Immortal character?
Okay. To be fair, okay, there was a podcast for Diablo 3 called the Shattered Soul Stone, and the former host of it and I, we shared an extreme dislike of the Witch Doctor. so so it was like, so sorry in that regards. Um, but the reason why we both hated the Witch Doctors is because we were elitist wizards. So we were
Oh,
like, so
That
yeah,
makes
so I love the wizard. The only fact that I haven't played the wizard more is because I would switch to the demon hunter just to take a break because for the last up-teen seasons with the wizards, like, okay, this is like the 12th version of an Archon build that we're playing. Okay, this is boring. Let me at least go to like DH and do something new. And then you remember Vault doesn't go through walls, and then you're just sad when you can't do that. Um, so for Diablo 3, definitely the wizard is my favorite class. And I will say this. For right now, the wizard is my favorite in Immortal, but that's because with the tech alpha, I didn't have as much opportunity to play, so I focused on one character so I could do more at the end game, do more testing, give more feedback. Um, but the DH looks like it's a lot of fun. Everyone says like the monk, the way everyone's praising the monk, it's like it seems like it's like a real sleeper character. Yeah,
mhm.
that's how like my impression. And
I take that on my shoulders right there. I feel like the community's following me on that one. I love the monk. I thought it was such a good class. And it's funny because you and Nemo both love that darn wizard. It was my least favorite class in the game. But with that being said, it was still great. It just didn't fit my play style. We've discussed that. But
it was amazing. The wizard, the immortal changed my life. I feel like it changed my life as even as a D3 player because as I went back to D3, I did start playing the wizard because I never really played the wizard. Most of the times I was kind of
mhm,
like a barbarian. To be honest with you, I wasn't really a witch doctor until season 22 because I did see that Mondanugu Spirit Barrage build and I was like, man, I don't want to try that. I never really played with the witch doctor, so I started playing with the witch doctor. I'm like, man, I love the witch, but I feel like every character I play with, I'm just like, oh my god, I love this character.
yeah,
But in general, the wizard immortal really awoke the wizard in me, so to speak. So
mhm,
in Diablo 3, when I start playing it, it's such a different play style. And maybe I liked it because it was kind of hard to level at first. Maybe I came from a barbarian, which is straight up, melee in the face,
yeah.
like in there, spin your axes and just scream and yell. I tried that with the wizard and I insta died. So it was kind of fun to see like, oh wow, this is a totally different play style. This feels like a completely different game, in fact. So that really what kind of drew me first to the wizard. But I feel like once I got higher and higher, I really started enjoying some of the classes, and I feel like the synergy between the skills, it's really really cool. The wizard is one of my faves for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Just like a brief add-on, I did play all the characters at the first BlizzCon demo back in 2018, and at that point, I was thinking like, wow, I may actually play Barbarian for like once in my life. So with that experience, I've never forgotten that. Like, so there's always an opportunity that I may go back to playing Barbarian or play Monk, or when the Necro and the Crusader or Finalist, I may play them, even though I've never touched them in Diablo 3. And I think just a difference is in Diablo 3, it's like, okay, you have to get set, you have to understand the affixes, which, like, how much cooldown do you need, or how much this one do you need, how much, and everything. It's a lot more finite. It's a lot more dependent on your luck on your gear. Which with Immortal, it's more about about the base skills because, again, like I said, they've been able to iterate on Diablo 3 systems that they've pulled over, and made them better and made them more interchangeable, so you're not as penalized for not having this piece of gear or having this property, that you can just experience the class for experiencing the class, which has been something I've been tooting for a long time in Diablo 3, is that when you have a game that essentially for the last 4 or 5 years that becomes balanced by item versus balanced by class, you're always going to run into these hidden issues that aren't apparent at first. They are correcting that wholesale with Immortal.
Yeah, I love to see it. I like seeing crossover from things from past Diablos in Diablo Immortal, like the borrowing of assets and stuff. I think that it's good. I mean, we're in the same same storyline of this game. I think that borrowing is natural, and I think that it should be done so it has that feel. Like, you don't want to lose things from Diablo 2 as we're making the story in between Diablo 2 and 3. I think that it's good. And I also love that I was not a fan of seasons in Diablo 3, only because I don't like making progress and then it being basically done at the end of the season. And yes, I still have all of that if I want, but then I'm not going to grind it because I'm going to be grinding a new season, a new character. So I love how in Diablo Immortal you have your characters you build, and then they're not reset or irrelevant at the end of a season. So I was so happy to see that seasons are not going to be a part of Diablo Immortal, at least as we know of right now. Remember, anything that we're talking about, it's tech alpha. They could change, but it looks like there's not going to be seasons in Immortal, and that made me excited. But we have a question from Nine that just came through. He says, do you guys think raiding with multiple full groups of players content would fit for Diablo Immortal? So do we think that would be a fitting feature inside of Immortal? Nemo, you want to take that?
I would love to take that. Nine, that's a great thing. I think actually, we talked about it a while back. I think it's a fantastic feature. So for anybody who doesn't know, like raid would be something that you would get in with multiple players. So, or it would be cool to get six. Like in anybody's played Destiny, you know, you could do a 6-man raid team. And what a raid is, it's kind of like basically a dungeon, but it's longer. It has stages. It has usually mechanics and maybe some puzzles and things like that that you have to do as a group together to get through, unlock things, and move to the next level, and then finally get to the boss. And usually a boss has some sort of a crazy mechanic. This isn't something that you can beat by yourself. Even like when some of the dungeons we've seen, like Leviathan or some other people who have high level, got a lot of gear, went in and held 2 difficulty and just solo the dungeon. This isn't that type of thing. In a raid, there's no way that you can do this by yourself. I've done this a lot in WoW and a bunch of other games, so I would be really, really excited to see this. I'm not sure how it would fit into the mobile scheme of things. That's something that I actually could have a throwback to you, Echo and Dread. What do you think about this? Because this could be a longer activity. You know, usually, I mean, in my experience, raids usually last about, I'd say, an hour. You know, sometimes even longer. Right? I've grinded with some players and done it like all night. So it really depends. But so I think it would be fantastic. I would love to see it. Let me throw it back to you, Dread. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the initial knee-jerk reaction is like, you know, you kind of get that weird little like cringy face because it's like raid, and then you think Diablo. It's like, how do these things work? However, you know, you get over that initial reaction, and you think, well, Immortal is geared to be an MMO RPG. Yeah, that's its angle. That's where it goes. The open world, the way it works. So it's already that way, and that's the way it's being directed. So having a raid system in there, I believe, is perfectly fine. It just has to be, I think, as you were saying, set up in such a way where it still feels like you as an individual in a party of, say, 2 parties. So say like 8 people go in, you know, 2 parties of 4 go in. That you still matter. Like, yeah, there's always going to be the elite groups where, you know, a person or 2 can get carried in a group, but where you matter because you have to do something. For those, like a quick example, because on the topic of raids, my biggest thing has not been so much do they belong or don't. I'm trying to think of like, how can they make raids clearly defined compared to dungeons? Because, you know, WoW terms or MMO terms, a raid is just a bigger dungeon. You know, you have a bigger boss that does bigger damage, you know, over bigger areas, maybe some sub things, but it's really not too much different than a dungeon. So now that we've played the tech alpha and we've seen dungeons, how are they going to make raids more advanced? They have to add in, and I think that's where they're going to have to add in more environmental mechanics. And for an example that, like, for those who've played Diablo 3, when you're going, or even actually in Alpha, when you're going for Leoric, I think it's either the first or second, before the first or second boss, you know, those 4 pillars that kind of light up and they spawn a whole bunch of skeletons and you go there. Think of something like that, but Leoric is the boss, and those 4 pillars are just there, and they're just spewing out skeletons. So you need to have a group on Leoric to knock him down, and say at every 25%, one of the columns gets blown away. But you need a group to kill the skeleton, so there's a group that can work on the skeleton king to get him down. So you need 2 groups doing 2 different things, and that's something that one group can't do because they don't have enough. They would never have enough damage or enough healing or enough defense to survive all of that. So the intricacies of how they make the raid bosses, how they make the raid encounters, how they get more environmental effects in there, that's going to be the real distinction if raids really will be raids in Diablo Immortal, or if there's going to be souped up dungeons. And that's going to be something we're only going to know when they finally let us see it and or test it.
That's a good explanation and breakdown of it. And I think, honestly, this is a good segue here to talking about other types of PvP elements. And when we think of Diablo 3, the multiplayer experience is you teaming up with friends and taking on the environment. But we also know that this is difficult to support for long-term play. You're going to have your diehards that are going to do that and do it like you guys in Diablo 3 for years. But it's gonna not support the people that aren't as diehard into the game. But PvP is the answer to that. We've realized this over the last few years. When you think of especially shooting games, battle royale games, things like that, content's always new because your gameplay experience is always different because you always have a different opponent in PvP. So it's forever exciting and forever changing without the developer needing to bring new content, although they can, new characters, new skills. So I've highlighted a few PvP modes that I would love to see in Diablo Immortal, and let me explain how I want it to be. I don't want it to be where you have a pop-up event, you go engage in a battle with someone because of a pop-up event, the way that we saw PvP in the Tech Alpha. I think we need to have a direct lobby. So basically your game is the campaign open world experience, you have dungeons and rifts, and then you have PvP. And PvP would directly be a lobby where you would queue up in the lobby either with your squad or solo, and you would be matched with opponents that are like skill, meaning your levels will be about the same. So if they do decide to use gear and have that gear be used in PvP, you'd be matched with people with equivalent gear. Or they can go the route where you go in with your gear means nothing for PvP. And this is my favorite way. You go in, you would choose your character, you choose the skills for that character, and you choose your gear. You would basically have loadouts, and it's all available to you in PvP. You select your character, you go in against your opponents. I think that it needs to be a separate matchmaking system on Diablo Immortal. And I think that having that element, which is very different to what Diablo has seen in the past, and I understand this could be controversial, especially to some people that are veterans of Diablo, but I think that that is going to be what takes this from being an action MMORPG on mobile to being a whole new experience that has a better chance of climbing the charts and being one of the top games. So I'm gonna present to you a few game mode ideas, Dread and Nemo as well. Even though Nemo and I have talked about this before, you tell me which one you think would be best if it's suitable. If it could fit inside of Diablo Immortal. So the first one that I had was a battle royale mode where there's about 100 of you. You drop into the world with nothing. You slay demons in a PvE element, and then you gear up, and then you take down your opponents for the last man standing. I don't think it should be called battle royale, by the way. I think that it should be called something different for a darker world. So we have battle royale mode, your typical 4v4 or 5v5 team deathmatch or solo deathmatch type modes. And then I would love to see a war mode where you can schedule war events, your guild versus another guild, literally 150 people or as many as you queue up, dropping in and just having an all-out war to see who would win. Those are my favorite game ideas from some of the most popular game modes right now across gaming, mobile, console, PC. Do you think any of those models could work in a Diablo game, specifically Diablo Immortal?
The first one, for sure. Yeah, definitely. And actually, to give you a real world example, not with Diablo 3, but with Path of Exile, they did something similar to that as an April Fool's joke, and everyone who played it loved it, but then they turned it off because the servers couldn't handle it.
Oh man. See, that's
like
the thing,
after
though.
after the event, it's like they did it as a joke, but people really loved it. And it's interesting because that one out of the three, I think, is the most appealing because us, I don't want to say us Diablo 3 players, but like us action RPG players, some of the best times that we have is when we're leveling. As long as the leveling is not played out, artificially. Because every piece of gear you're looking at it. Every piece of gear is an opportunity to level. You're constantly getting that upgrade, satisfaction. It's only when you hit max level and the upgrades slowly start petering out and you start plateauing that you start losing interest because you're not getting as many upgrades, and you can go a day without an upgrade, a week without an upgrade, a month without an upgrade, and then your willingness to continue playing starts to falter because of it. But if you're put in an environment where, as you say, like, say there's like a special area that's designed and say for realistic server purposes, like say a max of 50 people are dropped into a zone and you just start killing mobs, and you go in, you kill a mob, you get this upgrade, and all of a sudden you see like two people like working. It's like alliances like kind of come together and fall apart, especially if it's like universal mob tagging. So it doesn't matter who tags the mob, as long as like you get a spell or a hit on the mob, you get credit and you'll get gear. So like you can have like it almost becomes like Hunger Games essentially. Like people can like come together and group up naturally, and then once it kind of gets to them, they just start like turning on each other. But that would be the ruthlessness and the dark and the gothic nature of Diablo Immortal itself, being in between Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. So I feel that would be probably the most realistic and probably the most engaging form of PvP they can do. Because doing like a deathmatch, type deal, while it's standard issue and everything like that, if it's not balanced really, really well, you're going to have always whoever's the top team is always going to win, and then who's going to do it. And then, but the war, your third option, it's really interesting. It's just a matter of could the servers handle it? How many people could you realistically say? It's always this constant struggle of player ideas versus the practicality of it. It would be awesome if it could actually be done, but I don't know the practicality of it. But the first idea is probably the most exciting because it's a new experience every time. The replayability factor of it, the accessibility of it, you learn from your past mistakes. Like it's like a roguelike in a way. So that means the game never gets old. And then you can have people who just buy the game and literally just play that mode if it's set up the correct way and don't even touch like the main story, don't touch CRs, don't touch Elder Risk. They just play that. And then it kind of becomes like a Fortnite situation. Here's this whole freaking single player game and we're going to ignore it and we're just going to play this, and this is going to be the moneymaker. So who knows? Yeah,
and something that's really cool about that, a way that they could monetize that, it's free. I mean, Diablo Immortal is free. You could play all of it for free. But the cool thing about the Battle Royale mode, which in my opinion also is the strongest multiplayer option, is when you're a winner, you're put up on this pedestal. You're shown to the community as you won, and that's when you get to show off all of the customized items that you've purchased, the gear that you may have unlocked, and where in Diablo Immortal, as we saw in the tech alpha, there was no way to show off your stuff, really. There was no way to, okay, I won this. I'm going to show the community like all my cool gear. It could only be if someone wants to inspect you during the game, where the battle royale or any of these multiplayer experiences, you win, you get that spotlight time, and then everyone can see, oh my God, he spent $100 on that helmet. Like, you know, he's an OG. Look, he bought that helmet for $100, you know, and like that's where you could really show off that stuff. But it'll all be cosmetic. But it's a great way to sell cosmetics, which doesn't give any player advantage, which is another monetization route for the game. Nemo, you're a big tech guy. These servers, I mean, they're going to have 150 person guilds. Doesn't mean you have to have 150 person wars, but coming from Clash of Clans, right? War is it's what made Clash of Clans survive the amount of years it's live. It's because people come together, they go battle other clans. I love the idea of just getting my clan together, you know, and queuing up for these wars, dropping it. It's basically like the Battle Royale mode. You're dropping into a world probably with nothing, or I don't know if you're going to be geared up for that or not. It's something worth discussing, but it's the same as Battle Royale, except for 100 people dropping in, you know, free for all. You're going to have, you know, 200 people dropping in against, you know, one team versus the other. Can servers handle this? I mean, I know that you know a lot about servers. Am I stretching it? Is 200 people way too much, or what are we looking at?
No, not at all. They can definitely handle this. In fact, I bet you they can handle tens of thousands. I'll be honest with you. Now, can your phone handle that? I mean, if you do the phasing and all that stuff, you probably can't. But you know, you touched on the idea. I'll just jump back for a second. You touched on the idea of the third option being the war, the clan war, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's to me, that's a really cool idea, especially coming back from the World of Warcraft days. So I play WoW, and in WoW, just to quickly kind of talk about it, you actually can do a bit of a even higher level than just clan versus clan. So it would be cool, right? You log on, and you know you're in there, and then you're going against some other clan, and some of your buddies are hitting you up on the phone, and they're like, "Oh, there's a fight going on, and you know we're getting attacked. Our clan is getting attacked," and that's of course is gonna cause hell, and you just raise kind. Everybody's gonna jump in because you're gonna want to defend your clan. That's
Right.
gonna be super fun. But how about we take it a step further than that? Let's get to a 30,000 foot level. How about in World of Warcraft? There are different factions. So you have Horde and you have the Alliance. And I don't know if anybody's actually played World of Warcraft, but I've been involved in the 3 day wars, 3 day wars on a specific place where like someone from Horde, if anybody's played, but wow, you know, like there's a Horde, like it's a faction. So there's a Horde and there's Alliance. And they're against each other, but you don't technically speaking have to fight each other. So there are zones that are specifically Horde, there are zones that are specifically Alliance, and there are zones that are in the middle. And sometimes somebody always starts a fight. And I'm telling you, I've been in the fight in 3 days. Everybody on the service is screaming, Horde is attacking us, come on. And everybody in the Alliance is getting up. And I remember like jumping into the fight, going in and just fighting. This is all max level. So it doesn't really, scaling is a bit different in World of Warcraft versus Diablo. But it was super fun. And log off, like go to sleep, wake up in the morning, jump in. They're still fighting. There's thousands of people. It's so fun. That would be a really exciting thing in Diablo Immortal, in my opinion.
So what we just learned right now was Nemo was involved in a 3 day war, which instantly tells us that he has no children and he's probably a single guy. So ladies, if you're looking for someone that's big in the Diablo world, Nemo could be your guy. Having that, I mean, Dread, could you do that? I mean, I know that I could never be involved in something that intense. I don't have the kind of time with my family. How about you?
No. My wife would kill
I'll
me.
tell my manager I was sick during that time, okay?
He was sick. Okay. He's off the market. All right. Good point. So I think that PvP, to sum the PvP discussion up, and while I do this, Nemo, I'm going to ask you to grab another question from the chat. Maybe I saw that we had one. I'm sure you could find some, but
yeah, there's a bunch.
PvP is going to be the longevity. I bought Call of Duty forever. I was a huge Call of Duty person. The first couple of years I played the campaign, then did multiplayer, and then Dread, I ignored the campaign. Where all of this money went into creating, I ignored that part of the game. And I only cared about the multiplayer of a lot of these games. And then, if you become a huge fan, like for me, Gears of War, I would play and I'm wearing the shirt today, and I would play the campaign because you love the story and you want to do it. But really, you're buying these games for multiplayer, and to think that everyone is going to care about the story of Diablo, the leveling of Diablo, well, that's going to satisfy your action RPG fanatic audience for sure. We're gonna love that. But we're going to mobile where it's hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, it's the biggest platform. A lot of people could care less about grinding. They just want to drop in and fight people, and that's what's popular nowadays. So I feel if Immortal could do that in some way that's fitting to the brand, because you don't want to stretch it too far out where you sell yourself out either, but offer something. I think that this game can go from being the best action RPG on mobile to being one of the top games on mobile, because it's just going to be that crazy. And this is what Blizzard's looking to do. They've mentioned, as have many other developers, that they're looking to take their titles to mobile. So we could expect things like World of Warcraft. This is all speculation. Overwatch, things like this on mobile. But mind you, if Overwatch comes to mobile, you will see an ECHO Gaming Overwatch channel. That will be amazing. But you know, this is their start. This is what they want to do, so they can come, they could stake their ground. They could say, we're coming to mobile. This is just the beginning of the amazing sauce that we're bringing. So I think PvP answers the longevity play, to get people from downloading it and playing it for a month to people downloading it and playing it for years. I think PvP is the big part. But Nemo, I told you I'd pass it back off to you, because we kind of beat the PvP element to death. Let's move on to another point.
Sure. Well, there's a rapid fire of questions, but we can answer a couple of them real quick. So, will there be cosmetics in the game? Yes, they did state that we will have cosmetics. We don't know what kind, but apparently there will be a bunch of cosmetics, so we can answer that. We do not know when the game is coming out. Hopefully, we hear some more about that during BlizzCon, which of course is in February. So stay tuned for that. There was a question about skill building. So let me actually throw that over to Dread, because as a Diablo 3 player, it'd be kind of interesting to see what his idea is of the skills, how you upgrade them, and can you also talk about, if you want, we could talk about it together, about the charms, because that's sort of like an ad from versus Diablo 3, right? It didn't really have the whole charm spot. Could we talk about that as well?
And just to be clear, like skill building, like individual skills, or like interactions, like legendary gear, or kind of just the whole thing.
Individual skills, like as far as like how would you build them in this area, like by playing them versus upgrading them, skill tree, etc.
Yeah, I mean, well, how the skills are, like the skills are there, and then the skills level up as you level up. So certain skills will be, I think like magic missile by the end was like rank 14, and electrocute was like 4, but the damage ranges match up. So it's, if you had to kind of put it to it, um think of like an older school, kind of like D&D, Diablo 1, older school WoW kind of perception to it, where the skill ranks are kind of locked into your levels. But as far as like building the skills and how you can adjust the skills, I mean, naturally, like legendary gear is where it's at. And I like how, for the most part, I don't think I got everything for the wizard, but I think I probably got about like I could say probably a good 90% of the legendaries for the wizard.
Oh,
And most of the legendaries really had a good impact on your skill. Like I ended my tech alpha actually using disintegrate. And disintegrate, if you know what I mean, it's, everyone knows, if you've played D&D, you know what disintegrate is. Basically arcane beam, channel, death beam, etc., etc. But then I got the shoulders that turned it into fire damage, and then added a fire dot on top, so you were getting fire damage plus more fire in the form of a dot, so it was like bonus damage. So like, great. And then I got the pants that give you the 3 smaller beams that hit the closest targets. So disintegrate went from like a real, like, you had to really like place yourself in front of all the enemies to make sure you weren't getting whacked from behind, to now if you had 1 or 2 guys behind you, those 3 smaller beams took care of the guys behind you, as the main beam was taking care of the 20 to 30 guys in front of you. And then when you laid that upon the other major interaction that a lot of us wizards figured out was the firestorm, between laying down a scorch or a meteor, because meteor worked, it was just a much more finite time wise, and then using arcane wind on top of that to blow it up. It was always, even though it may seem monotonous and mundane to do that, 100, 200, 1,000 times. It was always satisfying when you got the combo off because you knew you got your max damage and you knew you were doing your best. So like lay down your scorch, do your 2 or 3 tornadoes or your columns of arcane wind, and then you just went. And then I would jump right into the fire disintegrate and just annihilate everything. And then it was like good old fashioned mage cutting. Go build up another group of 20, 30 mobs. Use the teleport with the head legendary that put the dummy there, so the dummy would hold the aggro at that spot, so they wouldn't reset as you set up your position. Then you do it all over again. Kind of became an assembly line, and the more you did it, the better you got at it. So so we could talk about skills a lot, but just in brief, the skills for the wizard I feel are really good. The ones I pulled naturally, if 1 or 2 of them can be made a little bit better, or more importantly, I think since the skills are good, if they could, like where the disintegrate, was a charge up, or Ray of Frost was a charge up, it hit really hard, and then it was on cooldown for 9 seconds. That felt really bad. Or like the meteor or the scorch radius was increased by 20%, but it had really nothing else to it. So it's more like fat finger syndrome. And like, oh, oops, I misplaced it, but it still did the damage because it's bigger. It's like, yeah, we can be a little bit more creative with what those are. But overall, the skills and how they interact with legendaries is great.
I didn't catch that legendary, the one where it placed the dummy. That was that's when you did the teleport skill, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. See, that's what I feel like with a lot of these things. I was driven by what kind of legendaries I had, because the regular skills were cool, but when you can manipulate it with the legendary and get it something to be like even extra cool, that was really awesome. And then I even tried to take the skills that usually synergize with each other, and when you manipulate them, change them, and they would change the whole overall effect, which is even cooler. Like that, I love the wizard for that. I haven't really seen that with many other. And then the monk maybe, but I haven't really seen that with many other classes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, my favorite thing about the skills is a pretty simple thing, and it's just that they all level with you as your character. So you don't have to choose a couple of skills that you like. So we all have our favorite skills, right? And you in previous games or other games, you would choose that skill and you'd level it up as high as you can, or level, do something like that. And then when you say, okay, this skill is getting boring, or maybe there was a nerf or balance changes, then you have to go to a new skill and level it all the way up. And you tend to just stick with the same old because you're leveled. Where here, as your character levels, your skills level too. And when you get your max character, your skills are all max and you can interchange them easily. I feel like Blizzard did a lot of things like this inside of the game to prevent you from having to do unnecessary grind. Skills being one of them, the other one being weapon upgrades and gear upgrades. If you get your primary weapon upgraded to level 5, and then you realize, oh, I just picked up something better, you could swap it and transfer that level rather than having to grind a brand new weapon, because that would suck. And I mean, that's something that people are so used to in the past, which again makes you say, do I really want to switch this weapon? But being able to just automatically switch it, they took unnecessary grind out of the game. They kept the fun grind in the game. And yeah, I think that was done well.
And then one more thing to add to that, as they did all of that, I really like the whole end game aspect. Like they did take the grind out and kind of made things a bit more fun, right? But they also added the end level grind for players that want to get there. So in this case, for example, yeah, you can upgrade your skills, right, and get them to the highest level, and then you're done. You're sort of, that's it. That's the skill, and you're good. But then there's a 13th gear spot that's available on yourself, and you can add it. That's a charm. And what does the charm do? As you get a charm, there's a whole. It's like actually like a really high end grind. We could talk about that, but basically, in the highest level, it allows you to upgrade those skills even more. Like you're able to, for example, if you're a barbarian, you could roll a charm. They'll give you +1 on your whirlwind, or plus some. I mean, the thing with the charms though is it's not class specific, so you can roll 5 charms and they'd be like for a monk, for a wizard, which is kind of hard, and that's where you got to reforge and do a bunch of other stuff. But in general, you can upgrade those skills even more with the charms at the end if you want to. I kind of really like that idea. That's really cool.
Yeah, like it's weird. It's like actually coming back to Echo, like looking at your Legendary Crest video, and then actually both of your videos associated with Legendary Crest, and then going through like the pay to win video and going through there, it's like my mind was actually put more and more on ease the more and more I thought about Legendary Crest, the more and more I thought about Legendary Gems, as far as like the whole pay to win aspect. Because if you would ask me like a week ago, I would say Legendary Crest, Legendary Gems were like my top concern for the game, because it's the only real quote unquote pay to win aspect of the game. But my number two has always been number charms as far as a concern, because like it seems like such an outliner system for being so draconian in like punishing or just outright not forgiving, because you get a charm, you can get skills from any of the six classes, and then you have to get up to a rank 5 to convert it to a skill rune, and then you have to build up another one, and it takes 9 days to build up a charm, because you have to get the base charm, and then you need components from 8 more charms to get there. So in the course of a month, you're going to get 3. If you do it every day, you're going to get 3 rank 5 charms, which is already kind of punishing. And then if you get one good one and you want to start building on top of it, when you take the skill rune and you go to imbue, you get one shot and it's random like a slot machine, and it just feels horrible. So in the feedback when I was talking about charms, I wrote in like, look, can you give us like 3 shots when we do the immune process? And to kind of go with the whole gambling aspect, say there's a skill rune that we want to basically imbue from, we're going to go to the marketplace, or one that we built up, and it has like that last skill, like if I'm a wizard and I have like Arcane Wind, I have Scorch, I have Disintegrate, and I have Teleport, and I really want say Frost Armor, and I have a skill rune that has Frost Armor, but it's the only skill on there that would even be good for my class, and it's the only skill I can actually use. So let me have 3 shots at it, or let me actually forfeit 1 chance to remove 1 skill from being picked. So if I give up 2 tries of the 3, I can eliminate 2 of the skill bonuses. So now instead of being a 20% chance, it's a 33% chance of getting it. But it's my choice, and then there's still, at the end of the day, the whole slot machine mechanic. Because it's like charms, I feel in a weird spot, because when you think about it, if you get a decent charm with say 3 out of 5 skills, you're probably going to hold on to it and build on it. But then if you get another charm that has another 3 out of 5 skills, you're probably going to hold on to it. So there's this weird break point, like, well, this one's good, so it's going to be really hard to get up to have 4th or 5th one, not because of, I would say, grinding per se, but because you're fighting RNG, there's no way to really pick it. And I feel like the charm system is like really the only system in Immortal that's a little bit more draconian and punishing than it really needs to be. So I think that's to the point where I put it, where I've brought Legendary Crest down and I've brought charms up as being tied for like number 1 concern in my eye.
That's interesting, because I haven't heard that point of view. I agree that I honestly as well don't think that Legendary Crests are that big of a deal. At the end of the day, they only affect top players pushing leaderboard. Unless if it's used in PvP, which I hope that it doesn't. I don't see it doing much more than that. And and I've mentioned this before, but if you play Clash of Clans, a new Town Hall level comes out. So you go from Town Hall 13 to Town Hall 14, let's say. All the people that are trying to be competitive, whether they're in esports organizations, whether they're pushing leaderboard, they are going to go out and gem that entire Town Hall level, spend the money to have a max account that next day, because they want to compete. It's no different. And really, it's paying to progress instantly rather than taking your time and upgrading to that point. So as long as the Legendary Crests don't put players somewhere where free-to-play players can't get in a reasonable amount of time, I think it's fine. I think it's a mechanic that, you will be able to compete there. You just got to grind your way to get there. These players, if they want to pay to get there on day 1, let them pay. But for people that want to not pay, or pay a little, maybe just buy the battle pass, which is going to be amazing value, they'll get there. Just take them a couple of months. So I think it's fair if it's not getting people to a point where others cannot get within a reasonable time. So I don't actually have all that experience with the charms because, like I said, I went through all the characters in the game and I didn't really dive deep into one once I got it to max level. So my charm experience was not as on point as yours. So that was a great discussion point you brought up there. So thanks.
It made my eyes twitch because I have 3 of the good ones and 2 of the bad ones, and I'm OCD, and I can't look at my charms and see 2 barbarian or I have barbarian, monk, and 3 wizards, and I was just like my eyes were twitching every time. I was like, no, why? Even though it was like +1. I mean, it's not really like that big of a deal, but yeah, Wyatt and team were really twitching me over there.
Yeah.
A lot of it's, first of all, it's really great. This podcast is great because as I'm looking through chat, I'm realizing, you know, us three, me, Dread, Nemo, we take for granted because we basically understand everything that Diablo Immortal has. Like, we played it extensively. We get it. We know what's there. But I remember day one, and maybe you guys too, when I got the game, it was like, wow, this thing is massive. There's a lot to learn here. And after one day of playing, I cannot say that I understood everything inside of Diablo Immortal, that I was able to effectively explain all of it to people. And now we're sitting here talking, we understand it pretty darn well, but everyone that we're talking to now in a video or live stream, they haven't played it. So it's cool that we're able to kind of dive in and spend a little bit more time trying to explain this stuff, which it's still hard for some people to understand when they don't actually have it in their hands to play it themselves. But it'll all kind of come together when they finally do get the game and can take the things that they heard us saying. They're like, oh, I remember them talking about these skills. I don't need to worry about leveling this thing up. I'm going to be able, it's going to level up with me. And concerns that they may have had, they can think back to us. And we could be a little someone sitting on their shoulder, reminding them they have our support along the way. So I guess what I'm doing is saying this podcast is awesome, and that's a reason why. So thank you guys for helping me with that. But Nemo, oh, Dread, I had another question. Did you play on a phone or on a tablet? Just curious, when you talked of that fat finger syndrome.
I played on my iPhone X, and for me, and I put this in my video feedback, that it was, I played, like, I didn't do anything special. Like, I played with, as I will show, I have a outer box around this thing, so you see the thicker edges. Now normally and this is where it kind of gets like interesting, because like PC player playing Diablo 3 and now you're going to play an action RPG on your phone, like, okay, so what things do UI people have to keep in mind? Well, when you're playing on a phone that has a thick basically case around it, like the bottom action button, the radial buttons, the last one on the bottom, and the top menu button were a little bit harder to hit, because not because of the UI layout necessarily, but because of the case. So I put that in there, but I made sure it was like, it's not your problem per se, as much as it's something that almost never would have had to think about, because it's like we play with keyboards. It's not like we put like a case on our keyboards. Mm-hmm. That would be like the most similar kind of deal. But yeah, I mean, I was fine playing on the phone. It would be nice to have kind of like, more ergonomic kind of like grips to go around the phone, just for like hand holding purposes. But it was fine playing like, the 2 or 3 hour sessions, and then, the battery, you get like the 20% battery warning, like, okay, fine, charge up, let's go.
Well, I mean, welcome to the mobile gaming world. Nemo and we could direct, I mean, there are case companies made with triggers and everything for mobile games. There's little control, I should put a video out on this. There's controller adaptions you could have to just put handles on your phone so it feels like an Xbox controller. There's a lot of little add-on inexpensive things you can get for your phone, because you're right, your typical iPhone case, your OtterBox box especially, it's thick and it's hard to get in there on the buttons, and without movable buttons in the game, you may have to readjust the type of case that you use. And I should probably team up with one of those case companies at this point, because there are some that are really big, mostly in like the Call of Duty mobile world and the PUBG mobile world, because of the shooters that make cases for mobile gaming. Obviously it's going to protect your phone, but it keeps in mind that you are actually playing on it. So since you're going to be diving a little deeper into the mobile world, you may need to explore a different case option. And
I watched the hell out of that video.
I gotta make that video. I gotta make it with affiliate links, of course, of course. Nemo, anything else that we need to touch on here that we saw coming through the chat?
Sure. There's a couple of questions real quick. As far as the controls, they're super smooth and super amazing. So somebody asked in the chat, there will be controller support from what we understand. Not yet, but they are going to allow it. Remember, in alpha, they specifically targeted a certain set of devices. So somebody asked in chat, well, it might look a little choppy. There is a FPS mode, a high FPS mode that you can turn on. But like Echo said, me and him were playing on a 3 to 4-year-old iPads. They were mostly targeting higher end devices for this test. This course will be expanded as we get into more and more testing. So it will be much smoother. And if you watched Echo live stream on his phone, so on a higher end device, that game looks amazing. I mean, it looks, I can't even describe how, I looked at it on his phone. I was like, wow, that looks completely different. So if you can, maybe you could throw, actually, that would be a good video maybe to compare the iPhone to the iPad footage. That'd be kind of cool.
That
So
would be a good idea.
there's very, very smooth footage there. The controllers are fantastic. And as far as the controls themselves, I like to play on the controller. I don't ever like the on-screen controls, and I love them to the point where I'm not even going to try the controller. I'll be honest with you. They were perfect, and I played it on an iPad.
Yeah, and if I could just quickly add on to that last step, when the tech demo came out in 2018, they announced the game, and then at BlizzCon they had all the stations set up. I know they've improved the controllers since then, because when I first was playing on the phones they had there at the con, I was constantly losing my movement. Like my thumb was moving out of the gamepad area, and then where my thumb was registering was kind of just getting lost. And you had to be really aware of it, which took you out of the experience, because it was more time focusing on where your left thumb was for the movement versus just playing the damn game. And with all the iteration they've done, which is a key word, iteration is a key word that I have come to almost like say is like a holy word for the team, because like iterate. I noticed a dramatic difference in the 2 years since then, because the gamepad was able to shift in different spots a lot smoother. Your thumb movement was held almost 100%. It was only when you moved your thumb way up on the screen that you maybe ran into issues. But from 2018 till now, it's so much better. And it was already good, and now it's great.
Yeah, and
sorry to totally cut you off, but for one second, as a new player, I did not notice the controls at all. That's a good point that you bring up. As soon as I jumped on, I put my hands on it, and I forgot that I even had to control it. I just played the game. Go ahead.
And it's a different platform too, right? So for me, I'll play Call of Duty Mobile like a beast on the mobile controls, not have to look, because it's the platform I'm used to. But if you put me back on the PC with mouse and keyboard, it's gonna take me a while to get used to that again, or back on a controller. It's gonna take you a while. It's what you're used to. So if you're a console player and you decide, you know what, I want to go to the elite way, I want to go to PC, you are going to suck for a while until you get used to the keyboard and mouse, until you finally realize that it's more precise, it's a better way for shooter style games. That's all it is. It's just getting used to a new way to control. Is it as easy? No, because you can't actually feel where you are, but your brain learns it. I mean, I could text message on my phone and not look at where the buttons are, the same way people could type on their computers. And it's just what you get used to. We have a question from AWOL. Do you think they will add PC support officially? Now, you guys may know if there's an official answer, but I know from having discussions that they weren't. They realize that they have a huge PC community that's going to want to play. I think it's going to be through emulator type systems though, like a BlueStacks or something like that. Do you guys know if anything was mentioned that we know of about an official? Yes, there will. I mean, it's on BlueStacks right now. If you go to BlueStacks, it's, the pre-order now, Diablo Immortal, it's there.
Well, I know that when they were presenting it, one thing that they mentioned is that this is their chosen platform is mobile, and they will stick with mobile. So, I mean, BlueStacks is a mobile emulator. It's basically a virtual mobile device, so that would work. But I don't think that it would be coming like officially as a port or anything like that.
Yeah, I would like Blizzard is very much what they say is what they mean. So Diablo, and even expanding on Diablo itself, because like not to get lost in the weeds of like all the hate and everything, but for all the hate for any different reason, whether it's Diablo 3 versus Diablo 2 or Diablo Immortal for being a mobile game and all that business, or Diablo 4, like make it more like Diablo 2. It's like there's always going to be those arguments that the community is always going to be in a love-hate relationship with itself, let alone Blizzard. Diablo is probably the most active, fluid franchise in Blizzard, because it went from being a standalone box game with Diablo 3 to having its expansion with Reaper Souls, to them experimenting with DLC in the form of Necromancer pack, and then way before that they brought Diablo to consoles with experience, which brought Blizzard as a whole back to consoles. So that was like the second big thing that Diablo did as a franchise for Blizzard itself. And now they're doing Diablo Immortal, which is their first real effort to make a AAA game experience. And I feel they're on their way to succeeding at that goal for the mobile platform. So Diablo is probably the biggest, brightest star, really, when it comes to Blizzard, because it's the most flexible. It can do all the things. And when you really think about it, if the rumors are true, we have Diablo 3, which is the current. We have Diablo 2 with its expansions being the past, that's still active and supported. We have Diablo 4 in the workings. And then we have Diablo 2 Resurrection, rumors of coming. And then we have Immortal. That's 5 Diablo games.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
That's awesome.
So when it comes to when it just comes to like the franchise and just being supported and everything like that, is like it's just amazing to see this.
Yeah, great points there. And yeah, that's 5 different games. I never even thought of it that way. But Nemo and Dread, we're getting towards the end of the show, so I'm gonna hand it off, Nemo, to you to make any closing points. Or if there's any questions that you saw that you want to just quickly tackle, we can grab that. I want to remind everyone that this live stream is going to be put in for some editing and uploaded to my channel a little bit later on today, in case you missed some of it and you want to watch through. We definitely had some good topics. So Nemo, anything that you want to say before we head on out for the day?
I think we pretty much covered it all. We answered all the questions, had a lot of fun. I had a blast talking to Dread and you, of course, about Mortal. And I'm really happy that he's also a fellow wizard. More wizard on our side is better. Hopefully, we will all have wizards. But I had a lot of blast talking to both of you. Let me throw it to Dread. For his closing words.
Yeah. I mean, really, at the end of the day, I feel Immortal, as I said, is a good game period and a good Diablo experience period. And really, at the end of the day, I wouldn't get caught up. For the people who hate it, wait till it comes out. Try it free to play. At least experience it. And if you hate it, at least you hate it for reasons. For the people, and more importantly, for the people who are dying on the inside to the point where they may be losing hype for the game because they have to be able to play it, it's coming. The tech alpha came and went. BlizzCon Online is going to come. We're going to get more information, hopefully more systems, more the end game. Who knows? Hopefully we'll get the full shebang of the people who are in the alpha. We'll test the 46 to 60 experience, and they'll have a closed beta for stress testing on different servers with more people who come from there. I mean, that's the holy grail. That's what I'm hoping for, looking forward to. We'll see. But really, it's a good, solid game, and it's being made by good, solid developers who've been around for quite a while in the back end. Not name dropping or anything like that, but it's like they've been around, they know it's good, and it's really showing as we play the game and as we're talking about the game, places like this. So I'll sum it up with thank you for having me on. It was a great time. Could always talk more.
It was a pleasure to have you. Where can people find you and what you do on the internet?
Right now, I primarily you can find me that I do all my work on blizzpro.com. I'm the Diablo 3 site manager, but it's really Diablo site manager now. So I do
Yeah.
all Diablo 3 work, all the Immortal work, and if they have Diablo 2 come out, I'll have to do all that, as well as dreadscythe.com, which is my personal site. And you can find me, the best spot is on Twitter at dreadscythe.
Yeah, and we know that we could find Nemo, aka the Scrappy Academy YouTube channel. I'll be linking all of these channel links. You can catch up with these guys in the description of this video. So because you've been so entertained by them and so interested in what they had to say, you can go check them out and say what's up in their latest piece of content and social media posts and whatnot. But something that I think that we really have been noticing, we've had quite a few veterans here of Diablo 3 and the entire Diablo franchise. And an overwhelming thing that we're seeing is that they like the game. They think that the game is really in the right position and they don't think it's just a crappy mobile game. So being that we're getting some of the biggest OGs to the Diablo franchise saying that it's good, I think that we're going to get all the people that are just like casual Diablo players or people that have never experienced it. I think that they are going to really be in for something sweet when they get Diablo Immortal in their hands, which hopefully we hear more at BlizzConline in a few weeks. But for today, we're out of here. I want to thank all of you for your questions in the chat that fueled this podcast. It's what makes it great. And we're going to be back in 2 weeks. It's going to be Nemo, myself, and possibly another guest talking more, anything that we hear in those next 2 weeks. Remember, when the game does go into beta and we have it in our hands again, we'll come back to a weekly podcast. Until then, it'll be a bi-weekly thing on Sundays. Links to everything are down below for you to follow. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys, my guests, or my co-host and my guests, for being here on the channel today. It was a lot of fun. So thanks, guys.
Anytime, Ted. Anytime.
But
Later. Thanks.
Thank you guys for sticking around. We're out of here. Have a great day and be good.